emergency?
We need some help. Some people are trying to kill us.
Where are you located, sir?
Me and my wife are at this motel, the Pinewood Motel. It's near the mountains. They've got us trapped.
Who has you trapped, sir?
I don't know. We just need help. The Pinewood Motel.
Yes, sir. Do you have an address?
No, I don't. It's near some suburb. Jesus Christ, look it up.
You're going to need to settle down, sir. You'll never survive if you lose control, Mr. Fox. And you shouldn't be wandering around in the dark by yourself.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Scary Stories by the Campfire. We are your hosts this evening, Jason
and Jeremy.
And tonight, I hear we have some rooms available. I guess that means we have Vacancy. Yes, that is the movie we are talking about this evening. Vacancy, probably one of my I would say it's probably one of my personal favorites. I like Vacancy. I went and saw it in theaters. So, in what is it, 2007?
2007.
Seems so far away.
It does. It does.
Jeremy, you should go ahead and kick us off.
So, I haven't seen this movie in a long time. Like, I really haven't. It's been... Oh, man, it's been years since I've actually sat down and watched this movie. I've caught bits and pieces of it on TV every now and then, but I haven't just sat down and watched it in a long time. And to go back and do it, I liked it more than I thought I did back then, or more than I remember. There was more to it than I remember. Just the overall creepy feeling of the movie was a lot more than I remember. Especially with the dude who owns the hotel or runs it, Mason, played by Frank Whaley. Like, he just did a great job.
I remember him in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
he just did phenomenal in this movie.
Yeah, he's a bit of a creepy character. He plays. I noticed that when you see him in a lot of these movies, he plays kind of creepy-ish kind of characters. If they're bad guys, I mean, like in Pulp Fiction, he played like the victim in the beginning of the movie or something. It's been a while since I watched. There's the one that Samuel Jackson shot.
Yeah. The one in the hotel room, isn't it?
Is it the hotel room?
Is that the one where he's with John Travolta? And he takes his food.
He's eating his burger. He's like, this is a good burger. You know? Yeah, that guy. He was also in the movie The Shed. If anyone's seen that one, he played the vampire character in that one. But no, this movie came out in 2007, and I actually saw this one in theaters, which is weird because I don't see a lot of movies in theaters, and I think I saw this one by myself. Which, if anyone out there says, no, watching movies by yourself at a theater is not weird. I watched Jonah Hex, and guess what? I was the only one in the theater. I got a whole private show because no one showed up for that one.
I wonder why.
I mean, it's an okay movie, but I specifically saw this movie because of Luke Wilson. I was on a Luke Wilson binge at the time. I was just like absorbing a lot of stuff that he's done. I think it was this one. I think I know there was like there was Henry Poole is here. I saw that one. Well, I bought that one and watched it, which is not really a comedy, so it's kind of more of a drama film. But I mean,
Idiocracy.
Idiocracy. I love Idiocracy. That one's a good one too. People have their opinions on the Wilson brothers, and
wow,
I do find that a lot of, I don't know, maybe they just think that Owen Wilson's acting is kind of flat.
Wow.
He just kind of portrays himself, I guess, in everything that he does. But I do like their acting.
I do
to an
too.
extent. I mean, I don't think I've ever sat down and actually watched a movie where I was just like, wow, Owen Wilson could have been like better, or Luke Wilson could have done better. I mean, I know I have to go back and watch some of the older classic ones like Old School and stuff like that Luke Wilson was in. But
Your volume's cutting in and out from where you're dropping from the mic, Jason, just so you know.
oh no. Okay, I'll stay real close to the mic. I'll stay real close like the guy was at the monitors, staring at the monitors in this movie. But yeah, so I went and saw this movie in theaters, and I thought it was a fun little film. It wasn't really entirely that scary. It wasn't it's kind of a run of the mill, almost like a thriller. Not really a horror movie per se, but the idea of the movie is that this couple stays in this hotel, this motel, and they're set up in a room that is specifically being filmed for snuff films, which, if anyone doesn't know what a snuff film is, it is an actual video of people being murdered that people watch for entertainment. So this is actual people being killed on film, and people watch it for the thrill of it, for the fun of it. That's what the premise of the movie is, and they are trying to escape the motel.
Hey, Clayton, hope you're doing well. Yeah, and it's weird because we were talking about Luke Wilson, and I forgot Kate Beckinsale was even in this movie. Like, that's how long it's been since I've watched it. And I'm so used to seeing her in Underworld that I didn't even recognize her in this movie, because I'm just so used to seeing her in that Underworld role that this one just like completely, I just didn't recognize her at all.
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of Kate Beckinsale movies. I haven't. I'm just gonna say I haven't watched Underworld. I'm putting that out there. I haven't watched any Underworld. People are gonna like run me over with a train or something for that. I don't know. Maybe it's me, because there's a certain aspect to, especially I think when the time Underworld was coming out and it was very popular. There were certain things, I know it with video games and stuff like that. For me, it was, if it was super popular, I didn't get involved with it because I didn't want to be part of that crowd, right? So when Underworld was kind of this big thing and people were watching, they're like, all they talked about was Underworld, I was like, I'm not getting it. It's just another vampire werewolf movie. So, but do they actually consider that movie to be hold on, if the sound quality gets weird, it's because I'm moving a little bit. Do they actually consider that movie to be a horror movie?
I can find out. Kind of a little tangent. I think I know why you're sounding like that.
I think it was the way my mic's set up.
It is
because I'm moving around the mic.
Yeah, but if you spin it just slightly, like just turn it.
I need to have it more.
There you go. Like just like that. Perfect. Because you were actually not talking into the mic part. You're talking against the seal on the side.
So okay, let's start this over. Okay, guys. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Scary Stories by the Campfire. This is your host, Jason and Jeremy, and we're talking about Vacancy. Okay.
There we go.
So you thought the movie was pretty good, huh?
Yeah, I did. I did. It's an action fantasy thriller, so no, not horror. So we will not be talking about it on this show.
We're gonna have to make up a whole nother podcast on another day for other movies. Just other movies.
Everything that we talk about that's not horror related.
Let's see. Ravenfire says, I'm not surprised people will pay big bucks to be able to watch an actual murder because people pay actual money to be able to torture them. Now we're getting into Hostel territory. I think Hostel's considered a horror movie. We may have to get into that one, but
it is.
I mean, the idea of snuff films, I don't know exactly where it stems from. I don't know like how far back it goes. Maybe I guess to the dawn of film, but it's not like it's a foreign concept because I was actually the other day I was reading an issue. There's a story arc in the New 52 Green Arrow comic, and there were these kind of quote unquote YouTubers who were hiring new people because they were like these big superstars. They were hiring they're inviting young people who want to be superheroes, inviting them into their group, and then literally beating them to death on camera so they can upload it to the internet and become even more popular. And it was just kind of a weird story, but it's there. It's just in this aspect, it's an old creepy Bates Motel.
Well, when we were talking about, or when you were talking about Luke Wilson and liking, you know, him, his stuff and all that, I guess it's good that he's a decent actor because from what I've read, he was not pleasant to work with. I don't know if it was just this movie or if that's just how he is, but according to Kate, she had a difficult time working on the film with him because he often showed up hungover, late, and unprepared.
Yeah, it sounds about right. I mean, I don't know. Of course I don't know him personally, and I think sometimes it just depends on the person and the movie. Because I think recently I saw a news report where he was I don't know if he was involved in the auto accident or if he was just at the scene. I think he was involved in it. I think he was a passenger and his vehicle had gotten hit. It was this big accident or whatever, and he actually got out of the vehicle to make sure that, and to make sure the other person was okay. He was getting out, he was checking on them and stuff like that. So it might have just been this movie, or it could have been, since it was 2007, maybe he had like a different persona at the time.
Yeah, because apparently he also refused to stand off camera during scenes in which Kate needed someone to read her lines to, sending his stand-in instead. So eventually, she, being appalled by this, refused to do her own off-camera work for Wilson's benefit, instead sending a photograph of herself to the set with a note that read, "Read your lines to this. It will be better for the both of us."
Wow. Yeah, they sound like they sound like the actual couple from the movie. They were so that's why they seem so relatively unlikable to each other. Now I know why, because they actually didn't like each other. Yeah, you hear these things all the time. You hear in certain movies where actors get together and they play enemies on set, but they are like the best of friends. They're like BFFs.
Oh yeah.
And then you get ones that play, best friends on screen, and you look at them and go, wow, those guys must really be just great chemistry to each other. And then offset, they're just complete garbage to each other. That's just the acting world. And like I said, maybe this movie was just a paycheck for him. I don't know.
It's possible. I mean, I don't know what else he was doing around the same time. Let's see. Around that same time, he did 2007 is what we're looking for, right?
Yeah, around 2007. I'd say probably the early 2000s. 2004, 5, 6, 7. Stuff.
I mean, he had just done Idiocracy.
Yeah,
and My Super Ex-Girlfriend, and
oh man, that was a good movie too. I like that movie. My Super Ex-Girlfriend.
And then he did Battle for Terra, 3:10 to Yuma, Henry Poole Is Here the next year, Death at a Funeral a few years later.
So he's got a pretty good library of films there.
Yeah, so it could be just that this one was just one of those movies, like you said, that was just a paycheck to him. It wasn't anything that was real big.
Or like I said, he could be one of those guys who could have been, he spent so much time playing like party characters and stuff like in Old School that he just kind of developed that as a personality.
That's possible, because
he was just, early 2000s. He could have just been one of those guys you just didn't want to work with. Or maybe he did have, yes, he also did Legally Blonde too. completely forget that he was in Legally Blonde, even though I really never watched those movies. But it could have been something like him being, just the way he was back then, and then over time he's just developed better. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know him personally, and I don't know, really his behind the scene antics. I just know some people are difficult to work with, some people aren't.
Yeah.
But, so you like the movie, you like the aspect of the movie. You thought it was a little better than when you had seen pieces of it beforehand. What was your favorite part of this movie, Jeremy?
Oh man, my all-time favorite part. I had two of them, and believe it or not, neither. I made a joke during both of them. The first one was when they were crawling through the tunnels, and man, them killers were hustling.
Yeah,
I mean, they were speed crawling through that tunnel.
Okay, if anyone didn't see this movie or hasn't seen this movie, the way the killers were moving in this movie is that they had an underground tunnel system. I think it went from the motel lobby to the honeymoon suite, which is where they set up the filming equipment, and it went to the auto mechanic shop, I think.
Yes.
Or
the shop. It was like the not the
like
mechanic shop. It was the
yeah, it was like some sort of shop right across the street.
Yeah.
Right across from the motel. So it was like a network that allowed them to easily move, because when they were watching the movies, the killers would just show up in the room. Well, the underground tunnel went into the bathroom. It was like a little trap door, and they would just climb through. And yeah, so they were hustling through that. So okay, continue, Jeremy.
Yeah, just them speed crawling their way through, man. They look like little graboids going through them tunnels.
Graboids don't run, they crawl.
Slither, whatever.
Or slither. Slither,
whatever. The other one was when she ran that BMW straight through the hotel.
Oh yeah, I was about to say that one.
And
she hit, what's his name?
Ethan Embry.
Ethan Embry, and then I made that joke.
Yeah.
If for anyone out there who doesn't know, Ethan Embry played Russell.
Rusty.
Rusty in what did I say, Russell? Rusty in it was Vegas Vacation.
Yeah, Rusty Griswold.
Yeah, and there was a scene where he would go around and he was walking around. And he was putting dollars in slot machines, and he was winning cars. And he's like, what is it? Towards the end of the movie, there's like, hey, where'd you get all these cars? He's like, I put $1 in, I got a car. I put $1 in, I got a car. Put it on. Well, in the movie, Jeremy, you can explain the scene.
Kate gets into their BMW, and one of the killers like runs up behind, jumps up onto the car, and goes through her sunroof, and she floors it. I mean, she just guns it, and they're all fighting over the wheel. And they go through the hotel room door and just plow straight into Ethan Embry and just smash him against the wall. And it didn't kill him right away. Like, he's, fighting and gasping for breath and all that other stuff. But Jason made a little joke at the end of it from the Vegas Vacation movie, which was,
I leaned in there and I said, hey, look, he put $1 in, he got a car. And there's a laugh, and someone had said, yeah, probably not the way he was wanting to get that car. I was like, yeah, well, that's what happens. Put $1 in, you get your car. You get the car no matter what.
We met him at Pensacon.
Yeah, he was at Pensacon one year.
We got to he didn't talk about this movie but he did talk about his time with Vegas Vacation. And
I completely forgot he was even in this movie, to be honest.
I think everybody did, including him.
Well, I mean, he shows his face at the beginning of the movie because he's a mechanic, and he kind of sabotages the vehicle so it breaks down further down the line. But then the rest of the time he's wearing a mask, so you never get to see his face until he's actually smashed into the wall, like it's some sort of big secret. The cast in this was only like
I mean,
About 7 people in this entire movie.
I mean, if you go through the IMDb, you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 total cast members. But again, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of them are the victims in the videos that they watch.
Yeah, about half of them are just like blurry images on a TV thing, and that's the interesting part. Now we'll actually get into the story of what's going on. The start of the movie deals with Luke and Kate, which their names is David and Amy.
Yep.
David and Amy Fox. I guess they were coming back from like her parents' like anniversary celebration or something like that, because they mentioned how they've been together for so long, and they're actually filing for divorce. They're getting ready to file for divorce, and the situation is exaggerated by the death of their kid that they reference. They never said what actually killed the kid or how the kid died, but Kate takes it very, very hard, because apparently, I guess it happened on what they say is her watch.
Yeah.
So she must have had possession of the kid or something, and it happened. They never explain what happened, but that's really kind of put a wedge in there. And they're driving through one night, and the vehicle starts making a noise, so they stop at a mechanic shop. The mechanic takes a look at it, and of course, it's sabotaged. It breaks partway down the road. So they end up having to stay at this motel where they find the tapes.
Pretty extensive library.
Yeah, they had like, I don't know, like 6 tapes up there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going through, and it was really interesting to see, because he puts the tapes in. He doesn't notice at first. He's putting the tapes in. He makes a comment about, it not being adult entertainment or something like that. But then he's looking at it, and he's looking around, and he realizes that the videos are being filmed in the room that they're in, which is already a grungy, nasty looking room anyway. And then that's when, the terror starts happening, where they're torturing them by banging on the doors and who's it's and whatnots. It's
those scenes actually, to me, had some great like camera settings and cinematography. The whole close-up shots of his face with like the person in the background kind of doing their thing. I really liked how those shots were done.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, Jeremy, because one thing we really don't talk about on here, because usually we hit the same points in these movies. We talk about the plot of the movie, we talk about the actors, we talk about, the favorite kills that we liked. That is one thing we never really talk about, which is the actual cinematography.
Okay, well,
how the movie is shot.
Well, to be fair, we did start with 20-something slashers.
Yeah,
and cinematography is pretty basic, straightforward.
Yeah, sometimes you can get some pretty good cinematography, but I actually didn't start really noticing cinematography, because a lot of people will look at a movie and go, well, the plot was garbage. I don't like the movie because the plot was garbage. I don't know if it's because I've worked in theater a little bit, but I notice things like the soundtrack. I notice things like the cinematography. I'm pretty sure, Jeremy, you've noticed the soundtrack every now and then. A soundtrack can make or break a scene. You can watch a scene in silence and go, "Oh, that's really good. Let's add some music." And you can add a song to it, or some sort of orchestrated piece, and it could amplify that and make it even more. Or you can make it better,
or you can make it horrible,
or you can ruin it with a sound piece. And I really noticed cinematography the first time when I really noticed it when I started looking at it was actually the Netflix Daredevil series. They had a scene in season 1. I know they kind of did a repeat scene in season 2 where he was fighting in a hallway, and it was one long camera shot where it goes down the hallway and bodies are being thrown around through walls, through doors, and TVs and stuff are being thrown at each other. It goes all the way down the hall, it turns around, comes back up. About halfway through that shot, I'm going, oh my god, they haven't stopped cutting. They are still going. And I'm just amazed at how the shot was. And of course they do the stairwell scene with the bikers and stuff in season 2. But I also, after that, I couldn't stop looking at the camera work. I mean, I noticed it in like Zombieland 2.
It's funny that you bring that up because I noticed kind of the same thing that you did. I noticed it when I watched a movie, which was Halloween. Not the old one, but the
Did you say Rob Zombie?
No, the sequel, the new sequel to the start of the newer ones.
The Halloween,
where it was just
sequel to Halloween.
Yeah, that long camera shot. Because you've seen it, haven't you?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Well, I know James on the Kill Count talks about it, but it's that long scene where he's going through the neighborhood and he goes into one house.
Actually, yeah.
Through another house,
I remember
comes back through, and it's just like that Daredevil scene where it's just one very long continuous shot, and it's probably a good 7 minutes of it, kind of like the Daredevil scene where it just keeps going. And Michael is just goes in one house, comes out the house, comes to the next house, and just kind of works his way down a few houses. So it's cool that you brought that up because it's funny because it's the exact same thing that caught my eye for cinematography, just in a different movie.
Yeah, I think with certain situations, it's not just about the acting. It's not just about the story. It's about the entire package. And with certain movies, especially this one, it is very necessary to have some good cinematography where you have the scenes from the actual camera perspective hidden in the air vents. When he's kind of poking his head up and he's looking at him. Stuff like that. It is very necessary because if you don't get to see him from that angle, it's kind of like taking a perspective and looking at it from the killer's perspective. He's sitting in his motel office and he's got this whole setup with I don't know, it has to have been 8 or 9 TV screens. There's 8 screens and they're all different angles, and he's sitting there and he's just zooming in on some and moving others, and it's just a very kind of gritty way of looking at it, and it was very interesting. Very just don't know how they got away with it for so long.
So there was actually somebody else who was originally selected for the film to play Amy Fox.
Julia Roberts.
No. Sarah Jessica Parker. That's what I said.
I mean, here's the thing. People forget. People have probably forgotten that Kate Beckinsale is in this movie because she's not this. Femme fatale, I guess. I guess that would be the word. She's not the strongest character in the movie. I mean, she does have she's about as strong as David is, because they're actively using their brains. They're not just she's not just some sort of dumb character that David has to drag along and save her.
Yeah, exactly.
He does take control of things, but he gives her specific jobs to do. He's like, "Hey, I need you to do this because I've got a plan. I'm going to try to do this.
Yep.
But I need you to be here to keep him distracted," or something like that. So she's not a dumb character, but she's not like her underworld character. So a lot of people may forget that because they've so used to see her as this tough character in Underworld, and well, Luke Wilson plays almost Luke Wilson, so there's no real change there. He's even sarcastic. He's almost like a mean-spirited sarcasm sometimes. But being in the situation that they are. All right, so they're being tortured wouldn't be the proper word, but they're banging on doors and stuff. The killers are kind of wiling them up, and the only payphone out there is it takes dimes, Jeremy.
That was
that was like one of my favorite scenes. It is just so weird, and the way it was done. They show up and they're like, "Hey, is there a phone we can use to call someone?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, the only thing we got is a payphone out there." He's like, "Okay," and he goes, "It takes dimes. Really, all it takes." So Luke was like, "Okay, here's I guess $1. Here's $1," and he starts dishing out some dimes. He's like, "It doesn't have to be exact change." Oh, they were calling a mechanic. They were calling the other mechanic guy. And they're like, "Okay, got it." So they get the dimes and they start walking out. And he's like, "Well, you know that they're going to be closed until morning also. But I got plenty of rooms here." He's like, "Okay, well, do you take dimes?" or something like that. And I was just like, "Oh my god." And the guy and Mason, the motel guy who runs everything, he's doing the whole snuff film thing. He just looked at him weird, like, stupid question. Like, bro, you just gave him like 20 dimes.
Here's a good one for you, Jason. The address on the motel entry doorway said South Highway 281. That would put this motel somewhere in Texas. Leatherface is coming for you.
A lot of scary things happen in Texas for some reason. Yeah, they never really said where this movie takes place, but I could probably believe it was Texas.
Well, they say it's by the mountains. So it's weird because they say it's entirely possible. They never say, but they do mention that David and Amy live in California. This is on their last leg of the trip. That would put them by the mountains, which could be the Sierra Nevadas. Like, it's possible that it was in, like, New Mexico or something like that. But then, like, the next one is mentioned taking place in North Carolina. But they don't specify whether the prequel is the same exact motel they're in now.
I think the prequel is the same. I know the only returning cast member for that one is, I think, one of the killers.
Oh, yeah, even all of them new. Everybody's new.
Everyone's new. I don't know if Mason makes an appearance in the film as just a different actor playing him, but I know just like one of the killers is I think actually in this movie he's just listed as the killer, because I think they were all generic kind of characters. You had David, Amy, Mason, mechanic, killer, and probably truck driver, police officer.
It was Highway Patrol, thank you.
It don't matter. He was a cop in a horror movie. He's dead.
That is true too.
Yeah. This movie didn't have like a high body count. I mean, unless you count all the victims on the
snuff
TV,
films.
Yeah. I mean, even David gets kind of a stab in the at the end of the movie. He puts his wife. He breaks a window. He breaks the bathroom window, which is too small for anyone to really fit through. He breaks it. He tears off her a portion of her shirt and attaches it to the window to make it look like she made an escape. And then he put her in the roof. He put her in the ceiling, and he says, "You stay here. You stay here. Don't make a sound. Don't move. I'm going to go across to the motel office. I'm going to get the gun." Because Mason had like two, what were those, revolvers? Some sort of high caliber revolvers. I'm pretty sure
Colts.
we got some Colts.
Yeah, they were Colt revolvers.
Oh. I don't know. They made a big boom, but he said stay here. I'm gonna do so whatever you do, don't move. He opens up the front door. He looks around. He takes a couple steps out. Guy jumps out, stabs him
Bam! Right in the gut.
right in the gut, and you get to see the scene where he's like crawling, and that's another piece of good work right there is that the soundtrack right there it gets like this swelling kind of uh wow. Just
What?
gotta I'm gonna have to go pause that for a moment. Ravenfire said, true story. A New Yorker magazine article from 2016 tells the story of a couple who owned a small 21-room motel. They created a system of crawl spaces and aluminum screens in the ceiling of motel rooms that meant the couple could observe the goings on in most of the hotel rooms from what appeared to be a ventilation shaft to their patrons. They did this for decades without being caught. Well, hopefully they weren't killing people, but just being perverts. Which is really kind of a thing. This, now that you think about it, this movie is actually more frightening now that I think about it because in this movie,
It
I'm
can be
assuming
real.
it's present day, I assume, and even the cameras back then were a little bit bigger, so but they were able to hide them in like the air vents and stuff. Nowadays, with the technology that we have, it's scary. This this could be a thing,
Yeah,
but
exactly. It could really happen.
and you wouldn't even have to leave like cassette tapes around or VHS tapes. You can actually just live stream this thing.
Okay, now we're getting
Yeah.
into Scream 4.
Yeah, we're never getting this, which is gonna be a different movie when we get to it, guys. Don't you worry. We're gonna hit that. We're gonna hit that Scream franchise. We might have to do the Scream franchise after the new movie comes out. I'm just saying because it would be really, we start working Scream and we get done with Scream and about 3 or 4 movies down the line, Scream. What is it now? Scream 6?
Yes.
Oh God.
So
it's like another month and a half.
those two pistols are 45 caliber long Colts. They were designed in 18 Colt single action army revolvers, designed in 1872 and was used in the military service from 1873 until 1892.
Yeah, I think in the movie Mason said because I think David had asked him if those were real guns. He says, "Yeah, but I only really shoot at crow." Why does everyone shoot at crows with guns? I just noticed that. He's like, unless you're just shooting at the crows, which must mean it's Texas. But so David gets stabbed towards the end of the movie there, and the guy's filming. Like I said, that's a good scene because of the way Luke Wilson is crawling across the ground. He's really got this kind of pained look, and they got this swell of music behind him. And Mason's filming him on his like little hand camera. And then they notice that the piece of cloth is hanging out the window, so they're like, go find her. They go and leave, and she sits in the roof until morning, and then she comes out, and that's when the amazing car scene happens, where she ends up,
Yep.
crushing the guy because the guy chased her out into the lot because he was hanging out in the bathroom. I guess I don't know what he's doing, but she ends up getting into the office where she gets one of the guns because Mason's been carrying the other one. And there's this scene where he is just beating her. And of course they do it like off screen. He like knocks her down. She like hits him with something. Or she kicks him or something. And he tackles her kind of off screen, and you see him just pull back his arm and just punch. Pow. Pow. And he's just beating into her. Well, she ends up getting thrown over the counter or something like that, and as he's coming around, she grabs the gun and she shoots him. And it is a loud bang. It's like pow, and he's like, "Huh!" And the whole window behind him shatters. I love that scene. It's just pow, and then just the glass it just shatters in one big, graceful piece, and then she just pulls the trigger a couple more times. Pow, pow. And they're really solid, loud shots. And he drops dead, and she goes back out there, and lo and behold, Luke Wilson's character is still alive. He didn't die in the movie.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I'm actually kind of glad that they both got to survive because I think it would have been kind of cliche if he died.
Nah.
It's kind of a hit and miss because you sometimes get those movies where you have a couple as a protagonist, and by the end of the movie they're both dead and the killers have won. And you're like, ooh, that's kind of a morbid ending, but it's an interesting twist because you don't see that very often. I think most of the time one of the people gets killed, and that's one of them survives, one dies. But I do kind of like to see that they both survive, even though you're not going to get to see if they get to sign those divorce papers.
So, and that kind of goes to one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of like prequels coming out for horror movies, especially ones that involve like the same killers from if like I'm trying to think of an example. Okay, so like I haven't seen the first prequel to this movie, but if it's just like any other horror prequel, we already know that nobody's going to survive because if they do, they're just going to tell the cops about what happened and where it happened at. It's kind of like the prequel to the Texas Chainsaw remake, which we'll get to, but it's the same concept. You know, none of the bad guys die.
It looks like
Looks like what?
I was looking at the cast for the prequel. See if any of the names are the same. Oh. This actually takes place at a different motel.
Okay, so that makes sense.
I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm looking at the cast list and they don't have. The cast list includes characters Jessica, Caleb, Tanner, Gordon, Reese Otis, the husband, groom bride Smith, which I think Scott G. Anderson is the guy who comes back. He was the killer in the first movie. Deputy number 3. How do you have deputy number 3 if there's not any other deputies listed? And then you have David Fox and Amy Fox in archive footage and stand-in. So apparently they have some sort of archive footage that has them from the original movie, but I guess it takes place at a different motel, and then by the end of the movie, well, I'm not going to spoil anything because we're going to have to watch it together next week.
So one thing I do want to kind of start bringing into these are any awards that a movie has won. And I thought about it for this one, starting with this one.
This movie probably didn't win anything.
Kate Beckinsale won the Scream Award for Scream Queen in 2007.
For this movie?
For this movie. The Scream Awards 2007, she won the Scream Queen. And Luke Wilson was nominated for the Scream King.
What is that? Was this the only movie that came out in 2007 that was like a horror movie? Because there was no way they could have won that with this movie. I might be being a little too hard on it because I like this movie. I mean, I don't think it's a great movie. I mean, I think it's kind of a mediocre film. I think there was a time when movies were coming out, and I think the good thing about it is that back then, when movies came out kind of like this, they weren't based off of anything. They weren't having to have some sort of big cult following. They weren't based off of a book or anything like that. It was just an original idea. And it was kind of low budget. It's not like you can look at this movie and tell that there wasn't a very high budget. I mean, it's shot in one location for the most part.
To answer your budget question, it was budgeted at $19 million, and gross U.S. and Canada, it did $19,363,000. Worldwide, it did $35.4 million.
So here in the U.S., it barely made its money back.
It made 7.6 million on opening day or opening
but
weekend.
But you said the budget was 19, and U.S. wise, it was 19
3
plus. So it just in the U.S. it barely made its money back. I know we're probably going to hear about the Rotten Tomatoes here pretty soon, but
but before that, on a scale of 1 to 10, what'd you think, Jason? What'd you think? A Vacancy.
I believe that this movie, at least for me, is it's a 7. I'm gonna give it a 7 because I do really like this movie. But I like the idea of it. It just wasn't like scary per se. The idea is scary. The idea of being filmed and murdered in a motel room for someone else's entertainment is a scary idea, but I think the way the movie plays out, it's not the most frightening movie out there, which is really kind of saying something, because I don't know if anyone else, I'm gonna lay it out. I'm looking for a scary movie to watch. I've been trying to find a scary movie. Now, when I mean scary movie, I mean I want something that keeps me awake, not something that just grosses me out. Okay. Now, I know I heard a lot of people say The Exorcist was a scary movie, but I started watching that and I think I got grossed out by the medical stuff. Yeah, medical stuff. But yeah, this movie just wasn't frightening. I think it was. But then again, like I said, I give it props for trying something different. It's not, a sequel to something or a remake of something. So I think the early 2000s were a good time for movies to just be independent kind of movies. Only problem is with independent movies like this or Joyride or Joe Dirt, is that at some point someone somewhere has got to go, remember that movie that we did like 4 years ago? We need we need a sequel to that. Like this movie, Joyride, Joe Dirt. It's unnecessary, guys. Stop it.
You definitely did not need a remake or a sequel to Joe Dirt. Joe
Stop
Dirte.
it. This movie was fine just the way it was. Okay? It was a nice beginning, middle, and a close. We didn't need a prequel. That apparently doesn't even include Mason.
Yeah, it was a direct to DVD and video.
I hate those.
So
I hate those for the most part.
I give it a 6.5. No, I give it a 6 actually. I'm gonna go even lower. I'm gonna give it a 6. Now he mined it. That's higher than what I remember it to be. Like you said, the whole realistic aspect of it is what really kind of draws it in. Yeah, the story's not the best. Yeah, all that. But it's like you said, this could really happen. Like, this could legitimately happen in today's society. And like you said, with technology being the way it is, like, cameras are smaller, you just live stream it and it's automatically uploaded, and then
take note, Hollywood. We want a remake of this movie using modern day technology. We want drones out the window. They're running out into the parking lot and drones are just following them. And it's following them down.
That'd be funny.
Oh,
but the cinematography is what really helps keep that score up. It was very well shot movie. But it is time for the Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, this movie's gonna be like, critic-wise, gonna be like a 63. No,
Jason?
a 58.
Jason's guessing 58. All right, counselors. Any other guesses on what the Rotten Tomato score is before I announce it? And no looking it up.
Yeah, you're gonna have to give them a moment. Sometimes they don't type as fast, or they type fast enough. But you know, maybe they're just not. Maybe they're just not paying attention.
15 seconds.
Oh, we got a 43. What did I say? Did I say 58? 43?
Yeah.
It's got to be higher than that. It's got to be higher. It can't be a 43. This movie wasn't that bad. It's not the sequel. I think you're thinking of the wrong movie.
Oh, I'm not going to spoil it, but I have seen what the Rotten Tomato score is for the sequel. All right.
I'm pretty sure it's pretty bad. But don't say anything. Is bad. Is it worse than this one? At least give me that.
It
Just
is.
Yes or no? Oh, yeah, I figured. Cause
55.
This movie's a 55.
Yep.
I was close.
You were very close.
I was close. That was 58. Oh, good night.
That's still a splat on the Rotten Tomato meter. I don't know what it takes to be not a splat, but it's a splat.
Yeah, and here's the thing about that, Jeremy. Sometimes I don't always go by what I like looking at the tomato meter, but sometimes I don't follow it because there could be a movie that I've watched and I actually don't like. I'm like, I don't like this movie. I don't know why. And it could be graded freshest. It's the best movie ever. I mean, take Joker, for example. I know you didn't like Joker.
I didn't even finish it.
You didn't finish it? I personally myself am not a fan of like the Joker character. I don't know why everyone like is so drawn to him. I know there's aspects to his character that are really interesting, but I just don't like him. I think he's an overplayed character. I think he's kind of like Batman in a sense that Batman gets overplayed for everything.
Okay, I can agree with that even though I love the character. I can't agree with that. Like, there's so many more Batman villains that you can utilize.
Yeah, and it always seems like he has a hand in it, no matter what. Oh, look, we're actually doing a Mr. Freeze type of story arc. Guess what? Joker's involved. You know, we don't want to go down this crazy rabbit hole, or maybe we'll just spend the last 5 minutes talking about Joker-related stuff. And that's what kind of blew my brains out on Arkham Origins. It's like we're finally getting something that doesn't have a Joker, and he's in the game. But like I said, I watched Joker, and I thought it was an okay movie. I was like, it's okay. It was better than I thought it was going to be, but it's not like my favorite movie. I'm not going to go out there and just praise it as being the best movie in the entire world. And they gave it a fresh. But I'm pretty sure like this movie gets a splat. I've gone through my my Vudu and seen all the movies that we have on there, and most of the ones that I love watching have splats. I'm like, what does that say about me? That all my favorite movies are bad movies? Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll take those bad movies. You can keep your Avatar too. I don't have 3 hours to be sitting around watching blue people.
Oh man, I'm not even gonna get into Avatar 2. From
all
what
right,
I've
James,
heard,
what year, Jay? What year?
it's bad.
This is our show. This is our show. We can do what we want.
From what I've heard, Avatar 2 is not. It's not worth it. It wasn't good. The story sucked. Like they just said it was bad.
Everyone loved Avatar 1, and I didn't. No, that's what I'm saying.
I thought it was a rehash of Pocahontas.
I'm pretty sure if you get on. Actually, you know what? We'll do it here in a moment. I can guarantee you that movie has a freshness on that tomato. So okay, so that was Critics. Critics was 55. What's the next one?
Audience score.
Audience score. I'm gonna go with a. I'm trying to see if there's like a pattern, like maybe audience scores are always a little bit higher. So I'm gonna go with 60.
42.
Actually, that one went down. Wow. So actually, the critics were like, "Yeah, this movie's a little bit 67." Yeah, I wish it was a 67. I think it's like a 70 something in my opinion, but
Okay, so 2 things.
Oh, are we getting are you getting a couple comments, Jeremy? I want to see some. I want to hear some of those comments.
Oh,
I want to hear the
I don't
These
have
are
the
my-
comments here.
Oh, you don't have
Oh,
some
I
of the
can.
people
Hold on.
some of the reviews.
Okay, so
I love these things. Some of them can be really bad.
kit out the Bates Motel with surveillance cameras, replace Anthony Perkins with the ineffectual Frank Whaley, and you'd have the location for this irritatingly cheap jack snuff horror thriller starring Luke Wilson and Kate Beckinsale as a depressed couple.
They were a bit depressing. I can see that. How can you say Frank Whaley is what did they say he was?
Ineffectual.
Ineffectual.
I thought he was the best part of the movie.
Like I said, I haven't seen him in a whole lot of stuff, but the stuff that I have seen him in, he's always a relatively interesting character. And in this movie, he is just kind of a weird creep. It's kind of funny.
That's why I chose the phone booth scene where Luke calls from the phone booth and he thinks he's talking to the cops. That's why I chose that scene to be where what played during the disclaimer.
Yeah, because I guess the phone booth is attached to the office, so when Luke was thinking he was talking to the cops, it was him. And he's like, "You're going to have to speak a little bit louder there, Mr. Fox. It's really hard to hear you." And Luke's like, "Ah," and then like this car comes crashing through. Yeah, he's just got this very perverse kind of. Oh, wait, you got another one, Jeremy?
An unpleasant and hardly entertaining creepy horror road movie that comes up as vacant as an empty room.
Who is writing these things? These can't be critics. These have to be audience members.
No, these are
These are
critic
critics?
reviews.
I think the line the critics will just like find the most entertaining thing to say. I mean, there wasn't anything really like substantial about this film. Nothing really stands out. It doesn't have like this major practical effect thing that we can talk about. There's not a lot of, I think it's more or less the idea and the actors behind it. I think all the actors did relatively well. Of course, I think, in my personal opinion, Frank Whaley kind of cheeses it up, but that's the way he's supposed to be. He cheeses it up because he's supposed to be this kind of
creepy weird.
He may
guy.
not.
Creepy weird guy.
Creepy weird guy, yes, but I know like they don't really show like the snuff films are about killing people. It's not about really anything else. But I do think he has like this kind of perverse nature about him because you're literally watching people in a room, and he's recording it, and he's just kind of got this weird. Yeah, but when he does get creepy, he gets creepy.
Yeah,
like when he was showing the police officer around the motel, and he was like, "Oh, sorry, I forgot I grabbed the wrong keys. I gotta go grab the other set." And then you kind of see him the guy's like, "Oh, okay," and he kind of turns around, and Frank just kind of drops the whole persona and turns almost into this other kid. He's just got the. That's where I remember him from. Also, he was in Psych.
Oh yeah.
He played the person with the guy with multiple personalities.
Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. We hope y'all enjoyed it. Next week, we will be talking about Vacancy 2.
Vacancy 2. Jimmy, did you get a trailer for this thing?
I sure did.
Oh my God, there's a trailer for this. This is going to be a shocker, folks, because it'll be the first time I will see the trailer. And I might cry. If you hear me crying over the mic, that's because I'm sorely depressed about this upcoming movie because I don't think it's necessary at all.
Well, everyone, we will see y'all next week, next Wednesday, same time, same campfire. And we'll see you on Monday night for Movie Night Monday. Y'all have a great night. Stay safe.
Yeah, see, hey, good night, guy. Hey, you see that picture right there, Jeremy? The one that you put up, guys? Just one last thing. That's how we're going to look when we're watching Vacancy 2.
Yeah, that's good.
That face, they're just like looking like, were you kidding me right now?
I agree.
This is what the movie is.
That's definitely going to be what we look like. Because that's probably what we're going to look like here in 2 seconds when we watch this trailer.
God, that's it.
Here we go.
What? All right, here we go.
Vacancy 2, the first cut, coming soon.
How can I help you folks?
Do you know a garage?
Not this late.
In April 2007, authorities shut down the Pinewood Motel.
This looks like a real library of classics.
What is it?
Look at that room from the movie.
Is that this room?
I think it is.
They discovered over 200 videotaped murders. The earliest tape is dated September 2004.
We're just looking to grab a room.
So you were in room 6. I hope you enjoy your stay. And if you need anything, don't hesitate to scream.
Now, see how it all began.
What is that?
Look how scared she looks. I like watching them squirm.
He's watching us.
What? Who's watching us?
He's got cameras all over this room.
Let's just go.
Get it on camera! Go, 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 go!
We're just trying to scare us.
No, they're not just trying to scare us, okay? This is way more than that.
Run, Jen!
Vacancy 2, the first cut, coming soon.
Hello, Angel.
Also now available on DVD, Vacancy.